Hello, and welcome to the first, official episode of Your Opinion is Wrong. With me today is Wrong Opinion Haver, Evan Gilman.
And this is Ian McDonough to my left.
Yes,
Your two co-hosts for this half an hour discussion.
yes, we will be talking today about a movie we saw recently, Anomalisa.
Yes, that is that is still quite an experience that I think I'm still letting sink in.
Yeah, it's like it has this quality to it where I think back on it once in a while. Even I had this feeling while watching the movie where I feel like I'm almost like remembering a dream I had. It's like, did I actually see this movie or did I just imagine it in my head? It has that kind of strangeness to it.
It's very very Charlie Kaufman. I don't think anybody else can make a movie like this movie if it wasn't him. I mean, I don't even think Wes Anderson would make a movie like this.
Yeah. Uh, well, we should say Anomalisa is
Mm-hmm.
the latest movie out by Charlie Kaufman, which he wrote and co-directed with I think Duke Johnson. I think is his name.
I don't know much about Duke Johnson though.
I just know he's a stop motion animator, so he was in charge of bringing it to life in that sort of way.
Yep.
Um, and what it's about is a guy who it's like a middle-aged man who gives these conferences on or he wrote a book about being a better
Customer service agent.
yeah.
Basically, it's better how to, whether you own a business or whether you work, whatever your situation may be, how to interact with people better and make their experiences better.
Yeah, which in that classic irony,
Yep.
he not a big fan of people.
Yep.
Doesn't relate to other people very well, and everyone has the voice of Tom Noonan to him.
Yep. In fact, he doesn't relate to people to the point that he actually buys his own son goes into a toy store, and you can't see me, but I'm putting air quotes around toy store because it's a toy store, but for the 18 and over crowd, and he buys a toy for his son, who in the movie you find out is 4 or 5 years old at most.
Yes, probably somewhere around there.
So he can't even connect to his own son.
Well, it's like
But continue, Ian.
So anyway, yeah, it's about he basically sees everyone with the same voice, and everyone seems to have the same face. Again, it's a stop motion animated movie, so literally they all have basically the same face.
Yep.
Until he meets a woman named Lisa, who's there for his talk, who has her own unique voice. And yeah, going back to what you said earlier, this is a sign of probably how dumb I am. When he was in the taxi talking to that guy, and he asks him, "By the way, do you know if there's a toy store nearby?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I know a toy store, all right. It's 2 blocks away.
And they're open 24 hours or something like that.
He's like, it's open all night." And in my dumb brain, I'm going, well, that's unusual. A toy store open at night? It's like, I mean, most kids wouldn't be going to a toy store at night. So, of course, I'm like a total idiot and don't realize until he's walked in the toy store and you see a dildo on the counter what kind of toy store it is.
I think the first hint I got was even before he walked into the store, when it was just like, when you see all the other buildings, and it takes place in Cincinnati, so all of the buildings next to it are just chained up and locked up, and you just see this kind of fluorescent looking building wedged in there that really, it's not your typical, like, I'm going to throw it back here, EB Games. For people out there that might remember EB Games or something like that.
Shout out. Not your typical Funko land. Want to throw it way back.
So, yeah, it was... that was hilarious when he walks in there.
Yeah, I felt bad. We were... the two of us made up half the audience at that screening. And it was around the time where he says, "I'm looking for a toy for my son," and then accidentally knocks the dildo over. I was laughing so hard and so loud. I felt like the other people might have been judging me, but I don't care. That was
If
so funny.
it's their fault, Ian. Their opinion is wrong. We are
Exactly.
so meta in the first episode saying the name of the podcast in the podcast. If they didn't think it was funny, then I, I don't know. Maybe they're stuck up.
They were just in it for the strong artistic integrity of the movie.
It definitely had that. I'm not going to argue with that.
Oh no, yeah. It's just, hey, I'm gonna laugh at a dildo joke.
I think that because I've been thinking about it more since we saw it, and I think one of the things that I come to dislike about it was how Lisa and the main character's name is Michael, meet. So basically, how that happens, I mean, I guess I'll throw the spoiler warning out there. He kind of goes into this panic attack and starts going around to different rooms on his floor, knocking to see if some person that we don't even know exists, or who he's looking for somebody that we don't even know at the hotel. And he just kind of stumbles onto this room and just finds these two people in this room, and one of them happens to be Lisa. I'm just like, well, I guess it's a little creative liberty. It's a little, it seemed very convenient. I guess they had to do it to make it work, but they probably could have thought of a better way for them to meet, I guess, put it that way. Like if they met at the bar, like the scene when he was at the bar the first time. If they met there, I would have liked that a lot more.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
It's like that's one of those things like I'm willing to it's like I wouldn't have really thought of except what's it? Except they kind of go out of their way to make that hotel hallway look like
Yeah.
it goes on
Forever,
forever.
yeah.
And it's like
Had a very shining feel to it. It had a
Oh,
very
yeah.
like, especially when you're looking, because the whole movie's told from pretty much his point of view. It almost entirely his point of view until the last literally 30 seconds of the movie.
yeah.
Like it had a very shining feel because this guy, it's almost like a slow deterioration for this guy. You see it throughout the course of the film, and it has a very horror-esque feel to it, even though it's not a horror at all. Like you're just seeing the madness that's going through in his head.
Yeah, it's very much from his like subjective viewpoint, and he really is not a very reliable
Narrator, or it's not a
no,
narrator,
yeah,
but
it's very much his delusional point of view because and yeah, I guess since we're going into spoilers, it's like the fact that every other person in the movie is voiced by one other person and seems to have the same face. That's not just like a stylistic touch. I think that was actually part of the story where again, the main character, it's like it's not just like a sad sack guy you're supposed to feel bad for. I mean, you kind of are, but at the same time I get the impression he was such a delusional person
Yeah.
that he was literally incapable of seeing the things that made different people unique that he was just so wrapped up in his own world. Yeah, and that's kind of related to something I was thinking about a little earlier is that the fact that I think you and me both kind of had this reaction
Yeah.
when the movie ended. It didn't have that emotional impact for
Yeah.
me like some of Charlie Kaufman's other movies had when I first saw them, like being John Malkovich or
which is
Eternal
directed by
Sunshine.
Spike Jones, but written by him.
Well, yeah,
so-
written by him,
yeah.
and again, they all have that distinct Charlie Kaufman-esque feel to them, and I think part of that is because you're really not supposed to like. I mean, you get where the guy's coming from, but you're not supposed to like sympathize with him. I think he's a very like damaged, flawed character, and
I mean, maybe for me. So, sorry to cut you off if you were still talking. I think maybe my problem with it is that, and I don't know if it's not necessarily the movie's fault, but and not every movie needs tons of backstory, but with this kind of movie to really and when you were talking about sympathizing with the character, I'm not sure that I did, but my reason was because I didn't really know much about him beyond the fact that he wrote this book and he travels around to give talks about it. Maybe you can deduce that he's not close to his family because of that.
oh yeah, that's definitely
Yeah, you can deduce that, and maybe he's having trouble with his wife or whatever.
Oh yeah, he's so distant from his wife and son there, and like he's even it shows him like out of desperation, like calling up an old flame and
Yeah.
trying to hook up with her, and it's that scene's
But
so awkward.
well, the conversations are very especially at the. I mean, the conversations between him and Lisa and his old flame, as you put it, incredibly awkward. I don't know if it makes you feel uncomfortable, but it's not. They're not pleasant conversations. But anyway, I just don't think I had. I didn't know. Still don't think I knew much about him to really have a, you know, I feel bad for you because I don't know what Michael did to get him put himself into this state. Is it just because the fame got to him and fame kind of makes you maybe it isolates you a little bit and because the way that he's did especially when he meets Lisa and her friend, I forget what her friend's name was. If she didn't even have a name because it would have been credited as something, I assume, but they pretty much looked at him as some kind of celebrity. Like they loved him and they wanted autographs and everything and all. So maybe the fact that he thinks of himself as famous, just I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing with it, but I just didn't feel much of. I didn't know much about him, so it was hard for me to feel sympathy towards him.
I get that point too. I think that's another thing about the movie that might throw people off is that it's a very, very lean, a very sparse movie. Like it gives you just enough
Yep.
little detail
To make you
like
think of it for yourself, maybe.
yeah, to deduce the story, to get to know the characters, but it doesn't dwell on it very long at all. Like his and Lisa's relationship, it's given like the bare minimum amount, like to know
Yeah.
how it develops and where it's probably
Yeah,
going to
go.
go. Like just that one breakfast scene where he's like having those little moments of criticizing her little behaviors. It's like that's the only signs you see that relationship's not going to work out, and again, that's technically all you need. But it's like when the movie ended, it's like I totally wanted more from that movie. Which again, that's not a bad thing. It's like I'd much rather a movie leave me wanting more than be like, oh my god, I'm so done with this movie.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I would have maybe wanted to see a little bit more. And again, maybe it's not a fair comparison, but when you're bringing up, the ending and it gives you just enough to maybe like you're pretty much you're kind of guessing on what you think might happen, but you kind of know. I kind of look at it the same as I look at the ending of The Graduate because I remember I took a film class at school where we talked about where the two leads, Dustin Hoffman, and I forget the other one girl's name who plays his girlfriend, where they probably end up, and we and it kind of connects to Anomalisa because in that film, Michael and Lisa like they have this night together and they seem to have a connection, but then the next morning it's he sees her for who she really is, and then maybe it's not going to work out. Well, in The Graduate, they're sitting on that bus together, and they had like they think that they're so in love, but in the back of your head, you're thinking, I don't think it's really going to work out for the two of them. And I think that seems to be a general, maybe at least in my opinion, I think that's the way I see that going, and I just thought of it as a parallel to Anomalisa a little bit because yeah.
Yeah, that also makes me think of something I hadn't thought of before, but like a connection to some of Charlie Kaufman's other works is
You're definitely more versed in that than I am, so I've only yeah.
he typically goes for those sort of ambiguous endings where you can sort of have to interpret it for yourself, like Eternal Sunshine. You have to ask yourself at the end of that movie, is this relationship going to actually work out again, or in like Being John Malkovich, like is this going to work out? So he never like gives you a purely happy ending, like especially like something I read in the original.
Oh, it's definitely not a happy ending. It doesn't leave you. It's not a happy. It's not a happy ending at all.
No, yeah, definitely. But like in the original, something that was cut from Eternal Sunshine that I read was in the original script because that movie is like them falling in love, go through a bitter breakup. They have their memories erased. They rediscover each other again, and like this time, knowing like that's happened before, they still decide to try the relationship again. In the original draft, it said that they would continue going through this
Mm-hmm.
cycle of breaking up, erasing each other's memories, getting back together for 50 years or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, yeah, Charlie Kaufman definitely has like that touch of cynicism to him, and I think
Uh-huh.
you could definitely see that in the scene where he's giving that speech about like every person is special. You have to recognize that every person
It's,
has their has their own needs,
uh-huh.
wants, their own dreams and desires. But it's like, again, from what we see in the movie, he doesn't believe any of that
That
at all.
mm-hmm.
Everyone, again, looks the
The
exact
exact
same
same.
to
Yeah.
him.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
And
yeah, I think that's definitely part of why it didn't have that emotional punch. Is just because it's definitely got that
dark.
darker view to it.
Yeah. I I think that it's pretty remarkable that a film like this was actually nominated for the best animated picture at the Oscars. I mean, this movie is about it's pretty risque and it's like it definitely earned its R rating for sure.
It has
It
stop motion doll
sex.
sex.
It has stop motion doll sex. It has plenty of swears in it.
It's it's got nudity for its characters, and
There's
what's really interesting is like really realistic looking
like bodies.
bodies on the main characters. Like you see the main guy like get out of the shower, he's got like that paunch,
Punched
that
out.
gut to
Oh
him.
yeah,
It's like yeah, he doesn't look like a doll. He looks like has features like an actual human being would have.
my favorite part of the movie by far was the animation itself. Like
Oh,
the amount of detail, like the the whole movie except for the beginning scene at the airport and a scene in a cab and when he goes to the quote unquote toy store takes place in a hotel. So, and a lot of it takes place in his hotel room. The detail that went in it looks unbelievable that and I've actually seen set pieces from the movie, and it's very small, but the bed and the bathroom and the TV and the chair, like it looks so realistic, and the stop motion looks amazing. Like that was
yeah.
just the visual and how it looked. I think, in my opinion, maybe it trumped everything else. I think for me, just it was enough for me to see the movie just because of how much I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, I want to say like visually it's such a gorgeous looking
Yeah,
movie. Like even from the opening shot of just his airplane
plain
going through
yeah.
the sky and like the golden clouds and
Mm-hmm.
everything to parts like when he's giving his speech on stage and he looks up at the stage lights,
Mm-hmm.
you can literally see like dust going
Yep.
through. It's like how they animated that,
Yeah.
I don't even know. Or when he sees when he goes to the hotel manager's
Mm.
office and you can see like the glow from the
Mm.
fish tank is like casting shadows
Yeah.
on the wall. It's like it's incredible the amount of detail they were able to animate.
Easily my favorite part of the movie, and maybe I'm just it's and I can probably it's I don't think this movie was exactly my cup of tea, and it's I still appreciate it, and I still glad that I went to see it. It's just maybe not my kind of movie particularly, but I really appreciate the animation with it because I've been on this like animation kick myself, so I'm definitely I'm trying to that's always the thing that I never watched enough of was animated movies, so I'm trying to go and watch more of those. So I'm still really glad I saw the movie.
Yeah. That actually reminds me something because again, like I think this is such a interesting movie just because again, you don't see many movies that actually deal with like depressing like adult
Yeah.
themes like this that feature like sex scenes
Mm-hmm.
and like not in an immature way
Mm-hmm.
either. Like again, it's a very human
Mm-hmm.
scene, like them like getting together and having sex. And the fact that it's nominated for best animated picture, I
Picture.
want that to win over
Mm.
Inside Out so bad,
You,
just because that would be
you
hilarious.
know, it'd be hilarious, like because you know at the Oscars how for each film, if it's not like individual people. If so, the in this case for animated feature, it's an actual movie itself. So they'll show a clip of each movie before they announce the winner. If they
Yeah,
showed the sex scene during that would just be the greatest thing ever.
that'd be amazing.
That would just be like you'll just get the the collective gasp from the crowd at that theater in Los Angeles, and they'll have to the FCC would shut it down, but it would be hilarious.
Yeah. That also reminds me of uh, another movie that I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's this Australian stop motion animation movie called Mary and Max.
Hmm.
That's sort of along the same lines. I mean, because again, it's a stop motion movie, but it's very much not for children. It's
Uh-huh.
very much like it deals with much more mature themes, and it's about like this 8 year old girl who has like a miserable home life who picks a random name out of a telephone book and
Hmm.
decides to send a letter to this random guy in New York who's like
It's a
this.
pretty interesting premise for that's all right.
Oh
Go.
yeah, he's like this middle-aged dude who doesn't relate to other people very well, and it's just about their relationship as it develops throughout the years as they're sending each other letters, and yeah, it's a really like stunning movie. Um, Again, I don't know. It's been a few years since I've seen it, so I don't know
Yeah,
what to say about other
I've
than
never heard of it or seen it, so
uh, I don't know even what even possessed me to watch it other than it was on Netflix. I'm like, oh, this looks weird. Let's put it on. It's genuinely one of the sweetest things I've ever seen.
eh?
It was such an emotionally affecting movie watching that. It
Mhm.
has one of the darkest moments I've seen in a like animated movie like that. Like a moment where I'm just, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Are you? And it's also fucking hilarious too. So that in an odd, unique way.
Way.
So yeah, that's along the lines in terms of like animated movies for adults that I think is totally worth checking out.
Mhm. All right. So, want to move on to something else now?
Yeah.
That was a good over 20 minutes of Anomalisa. So, don't want to consume the whole episode on that. What else would you like to talk about?
Uh, I don't know. I got my nice Mulholland Drive Criterion
Oh,
Blu-ray.
yes. When I saw that, I just like I had to Ian, I had to look at the packaging. I had to see what was in it, and I just rewatched that like I was telling him before we started recording that I watched it again, a month ago, and I don't want to say that I get it because if I say that I get it, then David Lynch is going to tell me that I'm wrong, or I'm going to assume that I'm wrong but I think I can at least watch it and be like, okay, you know, I I think I get the point of it. I
Yeah.
still don't think I might not necessarily get it because nobody gets it. Even Lynch has admitted that he probably doesn't get it, and I think they actually just did a uh okay, so I think they did some kind of thing where Justin Theroux, is that how his name's pronounced?
I believe
He
so.
was at a thing with because he's married to Jennifer Aniston now, so they were at some event, and somebody mentioned to Justin Theroux Mulholland Drive, and Jennifer Aniston was just like, don't even get him started on that because he's not even going to be able to tell you anything, and like these are the stars of the movie, and they just. And I still love it. It's still a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies,
Yes.
honestly. And again, I'm not going to claim to fully understand it, but
Mm,
uh, if you watch it for the first time,
mm.
you'll be hopelessly confused.
Confused.
But I
And
want to
don't read
say,
any spoilers before you watch it. Just
I
go in and just watch
I
it.
don't know how you could even spoil that
Yeah, but just like
movie.
don't even know what the plot is. Just go in completely blind and
Oh yeah,
just watch it.
that's it's one of those movies that you talk about like being an experience, a
Yes.
movie that just washes over you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a movie where you don't need to understand what's going on.
No,
It's so compelling to watch. The characters are
mm-hmm.
great. Every scene is it's a mesmerizing movie. It has some friggin' hilarious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the scariest
Yes.
scenes of maybe the 21st century, I think. One scene in particular that scared the fucking shit out of me the
The
first
scene
time.
near the dumpster.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
exactly.
exactly what you're going for there.
Yeah, Lynch has that way of making. He doesn't make horror films the way you'd think of, like within the genre necessarily, but
Yeah.
I think he makes some really terrifying, unsettling imagery.
Yeah, I mean, a la Eraserhead. I mean, the movie that put him on the freaking
Oh my
map.
god, that's one of the most unsettling things I've ever seen.
But like back to Mulholland Drive, like I go back to that scene where they go into the where they go to the theater and they watch the woman singing the song like that. You don't even she's not speaking English. You don't know what she's saying. She's not
Oh
speaking
yeah.
English, right?
No,
Yeah,
she's
she's
like
yeah,
Spanish, I
she's not
believe.
speaking English, and that's a long scene. Like that scene drags on, and I'm still interested in watching it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it,
it's
it's just it's a good 3 to 5 minutes, probably even longer, of just her up on stage with Naomi Watts and I'm gonna forget her name. I shouldn't. Um,
Laura Harris, maybe I want to
Something
say.
along those lines, and they're watching her sing, and I'm still mesmerized, and I have no idea what she's singing about.
Oh yeah.
Laura Herring.
Okay, I was close.
Laura Herring. We were close.
Um, yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Mulholland Drive because that's one of those movies. The more I talk
About
about,
it.
the more excited
Yeah,
about it I get.
yeah. You can do a whole episode on it anyway. Or you can just do a whole like there are hour-long discussions all over the web on this movie.
Yeah, it's just part of the problem is it's January, so there's nothing out currently
Yeah.
that's really worth talking
Yeah,
about.
like before we saw Anomalisa, the last thing that I saw in the theaters was The Revenant, and that was technically, if you want to be technical, a December release. It didn't get the wide release until January. So
Yeah.
as far as the wide release January movies, haven't seen a thing. Haven't seen The Forest. I haven't seen The Boy. I haven't seen
Oh,
13 Hours. I haven't seen, and frankly, I just don't have any interest in any of it.
I just think it would have been really funny if we saw Anomalisa, we saw The Boy, and made that our episode. Two movies about dolls,
Dolls.
technically.
It's like James Wan's fantasy. For
Yeah.
people that don't know, James Wan is the creator of the Saw franchise and
And
directed Insidious 2, The Conjuring,
yeah,
and Dead
he
Silence.
loves him some creepy dolls.
Dolls. He has a real if it's right to call it a doll fetish, then it is a doll fetish with him. But
Yeah.
that when you said movies about dolls, like he's immediately the first person I think of.
We could have done a triple feature with The
It's
Conjuring.
really you have that Annabelle doll that they just had to go and make a spin-off movie
Yeah,
because we all know how big of the player that doll was in the movie. And I'm being sarcastic, people, because the doll really had besides it being a cool looking, well, it was a creepy looking doll. Besides the doll being haunted and just in a case, it served no real purpose to the plot of The Conjuring. But they decided to turn that into a spin-off, which I think actually was that a January release? No, it wasn't. But
I think it might have been October. I
oh,
think.
yeah. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if it was an August release too, because August is also another dumping month for movies.
Yeah.
But going off on a tangent, I guess now.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Yeah. So
Anything you've seen recently that you've liked? Not like theatrically, just anything you might have. happened to
yeah, I
put
mean,
on?
I've been on a Studio Ghibli thing now. So
Hmm.
since I saw Princess Mononoke in a film class, I know I've had this discussion with Ian probably a couple times now. I've been on Studio Ghibli kick, which for people that don't know is the production company founded by Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takada, I think his name is pronounced. I probably just butchered that, and I apologize for that. But they're now owned by Disney, but it's a Japanese production company where the two of them they've almost kind of gone back and forth, and there's been a couple other directors thrown in there too. Like Miyazaki's son is now directing movies also, and the movies they're animated released movies, and they're released through Disney in the U.S. So after I saw Mononoke, I started going through and watching a bunch of Studio Ghibli's films. And the most recent one I watched was The Cat Returns, which is a spin-off of Whisper of the Heart, which is actually not directed by Miyazaki or Takahata. I forget who the director of that one is, but it's basically there's a minor character from Whisper of the Heart who's a cat, and I can't remember what the cat's. I'm really bad with names. I'm really sorry. And it's voiced by Carrie Elwes in the English dub. So that's what they do too. That Studio Ghibli is fantastic with taking these films and making them with English dubs. Then they always get the best voice actors, the big A-list people to do the voices for the English dubs.
Yeah.
So the Cat Returns featured one minor character from that movie. I don't know why it's called The Cat Returns though, because from what I've heard, I don't really think he's much of a player in the first movie. But it's only about a 75-minute movie, and it basically follows this girl who's and a lot of Studio Ghibli's movies revolve around younger girls. They hardly ever have male protagonists or male main leads, and the girl saves this cat from being hit by a truck, and it turns out this cat is part of a royal family. Now, this is Studio Ghibli here. You throw all logic out the window when it comes to their movies.
Very much a lot of fantasy movies.
A lot of fantasy, a lot of fictional, and a lot of like fantastical elements to Studio Ghibli's movies.
Yeah.
And so it turns out the cat that she saved is the son of the king of the cats, basically, who's voiced by Tim Curry, which that was a great voice get, I'm telling you, because he was just played this very slouchy kind of, kind of whatever kind of. He's like a very stereotypical lazy kind of king, and she gets like thrown into this world because she's now supposed to marry the cat because that's the cat that she saved. The king is gonna now like, okay, we're going to repay this girl by letting her marry my son and let her marry into this royal family. So then it becomes like this, I'm too young to get married and I can't marry a cat. And then she starts turning into a cat. And then she has to get the help of the cat voiced by Carrie Elwes. And there's another cat, a big fat white cat that's voiced by Peter Boyle from Young Frankenstein and Everybody Loves Raymond fame. And then there's another a bird that's voiced by Elliot Gould. And I'm not doing a very good job describing it, obviously, but it was just
I'm getting a lot of cats in this movie.
And what's funny is I'm not even a big cat person at all, but I was still like, it wasn't my favorite of the films, but it was just a really fun time. I just was sitting there like, the imagination that went into this, and I just think it's probably, if you want to, it's one of the. I feel like that's not one of the ones that's mentioned all the time when it comes to Studio Ghibli's films, but I just had a fun time watching it, and that was the most recent new movie I watched.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Studio Ghibli films as you are, or even Miyazaki films. I've only seen like one or two of his, but yeah, I've seen Spirited Away, and yeah, that's one that I was really like just you could watch that movie like with the sound turned off and still be like engrossed just by all the imagery and imagination on display. It's a movie that like for 5 minutes it's in the real world just enough to get you oriented. Then it totally throws you into this unfamiliar world, and you just kind of have to keep up with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that title's a pretty appropriate title because when she goes into this world, like she's like away, like it's it's so and it's. I really felt for that girl. Like that girl was, her parents turned into pigs, literally pigs. For people that haven't seen that movie, I won't say too much because like that one I definitely don't want to spoil for people because people should definitely go and watch that one because that's the one that's like quintessential Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli or Ghibli, however it's pronounced. I'm not good at that, but yeah, I won't spoil that too far. But that's a fantastic one for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so this is probably a good place to wrap up.
You should tell the listeners what the last thing you saw that wasn't theatrical too, and then we can end it after that.
Okay. Something I saw recently, because it's on Netflix, and is a movie called Darkman by Sam Raimi.
Yep.
To change, this is a little different.
We're gonna go from Japanese anime to Sam Raimi. I like it.
It's like, again, we were doing so good talking about like animated movies, kids movies technically.
Anomalisa, not a kids movie. The Cat Returns, very much a kids movie.
Yeah, but okay, so this is something completely different. But yeah, it's a movie that's kind of forgotten in Sam Raimi's career, like because Most people have seen, even if they're not familiar with Sam Raimi as a person, they're familiar with his movies
Mm,
either like by having seen like the Spider-Man movie, the
yep.
original Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies with Tobey Maguire, or they've seen like the Oz
Mm.
movie. Or if you're into more cult stuff, then obviously
The Evil
you've
Dead
yeah,
trilogy.
you've seen his Evil Dead stuff. But in the '90s, sort of had a period of movies that were kind of uh, I don't want to say forgotten, but aren't talked about as much or remembered as much, and like uh, blah blah blah. I almost want to talk about three different films at once, but again, I'll just focus on Darkman.
Darkman. Yep.
Uh, I got to imagine for people in the early 2000s when they announced that they were making a Spider-Man movie, and they had hired the guy from Evil Dead
Oh,
2 to do that.
people were
Uh,
nervous.
yeah, there must have been
People were definitely nervous about that.
because the internets were around at that point. I got to imagine there were the
Mm.
peoples going to their message
Force
boards, like,
going to their AOL
what?
instant messengers and stuff.
Yeah, going to their Friendster accounts and being like, what? They're hiring the guy
Nah.
who had Bruce Campbell
Yep.
fight his own possessed
Mm.
hand. They're putting that guy in
Mm.
charge of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
They are about to rape our
That looks
childhood. Um,
Rape, like the scene in Evil Dead. Sorry, people.
yeah. Darkman is the movie that connects Spider-Man to Evil Dead.
It's that
Because
happy medium, basically.
that is a movie that, again, it's not like it's a cult movie, so it's not one that a lot of people are weirded out by, or it has fans, but not to the degree like that the Evil Dead movies have a
Is
cult
is it is it
following.
yeah? Is it safe to
But
assume that it is a cult class? I would probably consider it a cult
oh
classic.
yeah, I haven't really made my opinion clear. I adore the movie,
Movie.
but
He adores the movie. Everybody.
I think that movie is like the most pure expression of Sam Raimi's person, or
Hmm.
of his interests. Like that movie just has all of his weird little things he likes, his touches, because it's essentially he wanted to make like a Batman movie. He's obsessed with comic
Yeah,
books,
he
but he
is.
couldn't get the rights to it, so it's like, screw it, I'll make my own
Mm.
movie. And so yeah, he made his own comic book character, and it's yeah about this scientist who's trying to create prosthetic skin, and but he can't. But it'll dissolve after 100 minutes.
Hmm.
And on the night he discovers that it'll stick together in the dark, he's attacked by the mob and left for dead, brutally assaulted, and horribly disfigured.
Hmm.
And so he goes out for revenge, and it has these moments where it'll have like the brutal violence of the Evil Dead movies. Like it opens with this mob boss like cutting off a guy's fingers,
Hmm.
but it'll also have really goofy stuff like um there's one thing where where you see Liam Neeson. It's played by Liam Neeson. The main character is Liam Neeson, where
Before he
has
started playing the same character over and over again.
yeah, this was a different kind of role for him at the
Yeah.
time, where he has this moment of rage uh, upon seeing one of his attackers again, and so you see like behind him, like flames
Hmm.
appearing in the background. There's like all these insane quick cuts. Like there's one shot of him like with a court jester hat, like really crazy kind of stuff
Hmm.
happening. Uh, so it has that kind of goofiness. Like there's even a hitman who has like a false leg that he uses as a to hide a machine gun, and so you'll see him hopping around shooting it.
Very Planet
So
Terror-esque. Maybe I can see where Planet Terror got that from. But continue. Sorry.
yeah, so it's just a really interesting movie because it has all the cartooniness
Hmm.
and comic book touches that Sam Raimi likes, but it also has the really like
I was
campy
about to say campy, probably.
and at the same time very dark,
Hmm.
brutal stuff that is in the Evil Dead movies too. So yeah, it's a really interesting. So it's a movie that obviously, because it has all these different elements to it, it didn't have a whole lot of broad appeal and got to direct to DVD sequels that were pretty bad from what I've heard. But
Well, direct to video probably sums it all up.
yeah, but it's a movie I really love just because it's a movie you can tell Sam Raimi made basically for himself. And so it has all his weird interests, and so
I wonder
yeah,
if I
really
wonder
like the
if I
movie.
wonder if it would be fair to say that Darkman was the reason that he even got Spider-Man in the first place.
Yeah, that might have
I mean,
actually been part of it.
beyond the fact of him being a big fan of Spider-Man, which he is. I mean, I think that kind. I mean, I think that almost has to be a prerequisite to do a comic book movie. Except I know that the X-Men for the early X-Men movies, those guys weren't X-Men fans. But when they got the gig to do it, they went ahead and read all the comic books for it and became fans of it.
Well, yeah, I think even like Tim Burton, I think famously said he's never read a comic book or anything, and his Batman movies
Movies
were
are
very
pretty-
much his own interpretation
Yeah.
of the material. He wasn't.
I still love his two Batman movies though.
Oh yeah, they're
I know that people our generation, our millennials love Nolan's trilogy, and rightfully so. It's a great trilogy, but I still love the Michael Keaton Batman.
oh yeah, they're well yeah with the Chris Nolan movies and the Tim
Yeah.
Burton Batman movies, they're again totally different interpretations of the source material. So yeah, that's what kind of makes Batman kind of interesting is those different interpretations. But yeah, that's about 40 minutes there. So
I think that's probably a good stopping point.
yeah, you've been listening to Your Opinion is Wrong,
And-
except ours. Our opinions were all accurate and correct.
Yes, our opinions were right. Yours are wrong. So if you turn around and say that you hate Darkman, well, your opinion is probably wrong.
No, yeah, Your Opinion is Wrong, but it is on Netflix, so you should check it out and watch it and love it.
Yeah, and go support Anomalisa too. You know, it's nice to yeah. Again, it's probably not going to be the kind of thing for every kind of person, and don't take the kids to see it. Whatever you do.
No,
But,
I really want people to take their kids to see Anomalisa.
But I definitely like yeah. I promise I'll stop talking after this. But go support that movie and don't go see the stupid 50 Shades of Black and in the shitty January movies that typically come out. Like like we all know they're terrible movies. Go support something that's actually somebody actually put effort into making. And that's and from a filmmaker who's actually proud of his work and not just making cash grabs.
It's a very thought-provoking work. It's again got gorgeous imagery. It's got really great comedy. It's very much worth checking out.
And we forgot to mention too that Jennifer Jason Leigh does the voice of Lisa. So
she's great.
So for people that just recently might have seen The Hateful Eight, like I think 2015's almost been her resurrection of a year. Like she's getting all sorts of critical acclaim for doing the voice work in then Hateful Eight. So she did a good job with it. I think voice acting is a very difficult thing to do, and I think she did a really good job with it, especially for that kind of movie where her voice is on display because everybody else except for the guy have the same voice. So it's her and one other person, two other people. That's it.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll sign off.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back again soon.
We'll be back again talking about something totally different, probably.
Totally different, probably, because I'm probably not going to see Anomalisa again. Bye.